Hey, it's Mark Ferguson with Investor More, and this is the Ocho and Aplex I own with a bunch of garages. And this behind it is a property that just came up for sale. And it's a very interesting property, and we're going to walk through it and show you what it looks like. But it's a foreclosure, it needs some work. I'd actually talked to the people living here before. They let me put a camera up on their barn. So I was pretty surprised when I saw it come up for sale, and surprised when I saw it was a foreclosure. Now, we had seen a lot of activity here, them taking a lot of dumpsters out of it, but I wasn't expecting a foreclosure. So we'll give you some backstories on this property, show you what it looks like, and of course we have more drama at the Ocho too we'll briefly talk about as well. I wanted to show some really interesting history on this property that I had no idea about until I started looking into it a little bit. First off, this can show you what the real estate crash was like in Colorado. In 2010, this house was listed for $29,900, and it went into auction terms after that. And if we look down here, it was listed for $44,900, went under contract, came back up for sale, lowered the price to $39,000, lowered the price to $34,000, lowered the price to $29,000, went under contract, fell apart. It actually ended up selling for $20,000. And there were so many houses around here like this, older 100-year-old houses in rough shape, that you could buy for $30,000. $20,000 was pretty cheap, but it was crazy, right? If we could go back in time, I bought quite a few properties that were nicer, newer, but these houses are worth, $250,000 to $300,000 now. They've literally 10 times their value. But, it did need a little bit of work, but it really wasn't that bad back then. It's just kind of crazy how all that happened. Let me get out of here and hopefully not delete it. So that was back in 2010. And wrong button. Expired again. In 2014, it was for sale for $125,000 and expired. I don't think it ever sold. Looks a little different than when it sold for $20,000, but not significantly different. And then in 2004, it was for sale 2019, it was for sale for $235,000. And this is interesting because if you read these comments, multifamily approved location, seller has started the application with the city to build a sixplex. See attached plans and specs. Other uses will be remodel home and barn, possibly add a few living units, sold as is. And it also said it was tenant occupied. So that makes more sense. The people I talked to were really cool. They let me put a camera up. Were super nice. And I was very surprised when I saw the house had gone into foreclosure. So part of that could be just that they were tenants. They were not the owners. And you can see there wasn't nearly as much crazy stuff going on in 2019. I wonder if those tenants put all that stuff up. Oh, the barn looks a lot nicer too. You guys haven't seen that crazy stuff yet. Sorry. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on this property. Okay. And then we go to, that's the active listing today for $254,000, and then another expired listing in 2023 saying the same thing, multifamily approved, tenants in the property, no access to the property. So there was stuff everywhere. I don't know how many dumpster loads they took out of there from the backyard. There was vehicles back there, camper back there, tons of stuff, and we'll show you what it looks like now. Now, this house has definitely seen better days. It's not awful, but it had some really weird stuff, especially in the backyard. And like I was saying, now I'm wondering if the tenants added those things, because based on what the MLS said about making a sixplex being sold as is, certainly doesn't sound like the owner of the property wanted to put any money into it, especially the weird stuff we saw in back. I believe it's got electric baseboard heat. It's either electric baseboard heat or hot water heat. But I did not see a boiler or anything anywhere else, so I believe that's what that is. Of course, you've got different colored walls all over. Really old windows, but they're not in bad shape. There was a couple broken ones, but for the most part, not horrible. You had your living room, dining room. Just a few of the lights worked, so I apologize for it being a little dark in here. You've got just a very common 1910 to 1930 kind of bungalow story or bungalow style house with your bedrooms on one side and the living room, dining room, kitchen on the other side. It did have kind of this weird closet. I don't think there's a closet in the first bedroom. These two bedrooms share a closet. So if you're into private closets, this is definitely not the house for you. Here's the kitchen, and it looks pretty much the same as it did in all of those MLS pictures. So I don't know if much was done to this house over the years since it was bought for $20,000, which is crazy. If only, like I said, we can go back in time and just buy like 20 of those things, that would be amazing. I do know some investors who did that. And then, hey, when they're worth $100,000 and you sell a couple of them, like, oh, I did awesome. And then they go up to 200,000. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have sold. And they go up to 300,000. Like, oh, I really shouldn't have sold. But hey, it's still better off than not buying them at all. So here's the back room that shares that closet as well. And again, very unique paint colors, but not in horrible shape. We've seen much worse. The price isn't bad for this either, but I don't think there's enough room in it for us to flip, especially after I saw the backyard and the rest of the property. And then you've got another room back here, which is kind of like an office, no closet there. So if you really want to get creative and kind of make some of these bedrooms tiny, you could probably have a 4-bedroom house. Definitely be small and tight, but if you're flipping it, it probably wouldn't be the worst idea just to stick another bedroom in there somewhere. Now, I had not seen any of this yet, and in the pictures we saw before, this was not here. I don't know what this was used for. You've got some very creative carpentry. Pretty sure this wasn't permitted. But they put windows in. I mean, they spent some money and time building this. And I kind of feel bad when I see tenants who do stuff like that and put a bunch of money into a property, and they're not going to get that money back out of it. Unless they're hoping at some point maybe they could buy it or something like that. But really putting on a haphazard addition like that is not adding any value. And then, like I said, in some of the pictures, none of this was here too. You've got this big kind of fire pit with tree stumps all over. The big barn, which has seen better days. We'll show you that, of course. And like I said, when I first bought the Ocho and talked to them, this yard was full of stuff everywhere. I'll see if I can, I don't know if I have a picture or anything of it. Maybe I'll look back some of my first videos and see, and I'll try and impose one. But if not, I either didn't find that picture or I forgot. So sorry about that. I actually did go back and I forgot about this. This was the police standoff we had behind that property in our garages. And that's kind of why we put up the camera too. But we had an issue here where I was out at the property doing something else. I heard a bunch of yelling and didn't know what was going on. I walked behind the garages and there were like 5 police cars and they're yelling at somebody in the garage. And they had followed them in there. And they were there for hours and hours, but eventually they arrested him. I think it was drug charges, like trafficking, not just minor drug charges. But with this video, you can clearly see there's a barn and the property, and I think that was their van. Can't see in there too well, but they had so much stuff back there. And yeah, like I said, the property didn't look awful, but interesting story. And forgot about the whole Ocho thing. There's been so much stuff happen at the Ocho that I can't remember a police standoff. That's kind of crazy. And we have our own playlist for the Ocho if you want to see all the craziness and stories and squatters and evictions and different stuff that have been going on there. There's a fence, you can see this falling down, and then there's the Ocho right there. My camera was right there on the barn overlooking it, but at some point my camera was stopped working for some reason, and then like a month later it was gone. It was broken. Someone had smashed it. And now I'm starting to wonder, well, did the bank do that, or I don't know. That's kind of weird because it's right about that time where it would have gone through foreclosure. And if they got there and saw a camera on there, whoever's doing proper preservation or trashing out, it's possible they took the camera thinking maybe it's valuable or they could do something with it, and thinking it was the previous owner's camera and not mine. So a lot of things to consider there. This barn, Nikki and I were talking about it. I don't know if you can do anything with it except tear it down. It is rough. It's not really a garage. It's not really a barn. It's got a second story. And I was pretty brave walking up these steps. And then as I got up there, I saw the sign that said, "Caution, do not go any farther due to rotted floorboards." So I did go a little bit farther, but not onto those. And you could see the bow in the floor, all the light coming through. This place was rough. So, yeah, they said you could make the barn into another living unit. Probably easier to tear it down and build brand new than to use this barn and make it another living unit. So that was unique. You've got a couple of sheds, and then you've got a cellar over here. And yes, I am going down there. And yes, it was a little bit weird going down there, just because whenever you see a house, especially a foreclosure, and it's just got an open cellar door, you don't know what's going on down there. Is someone living down there? Are there animals down there? Are there bodies down there? Who knows? And so this is one of the best murder rooms I've seen in a while. I haven't bought any houses with crazy murder rooms lately. This is one of the best. And I was a little hesitant. I'm like, do I really want to go in here? I tried to avoid all the cobwebs and spider webs, which there weren't any in the entrance, which also means maybe people have been down here recently. So, I don't know how well you can see, but there's some stuff down there. Some funky wiring. The foundation, or at least this inside wall, is just falling off the dirt. And then crawl space, more weird stuff. And that's all I had time for. So it will be interesting to see what happens with it. I doubt anybody's going to build a sixplex here, but maybe. My biggest concern when seeing those plans was, does it have enough water taps? Are they going to charge them for more water taps? That can be very, very expensive. You're paying $250,000 for a lot, which is kind of expensive for a lot. Then you have to tear down the house, which probably adds another 20 to 30 grand, plus the barn. You can buy vacant lots for less than that. So really, I'm guessing it'll go to probably an investor, maybe an owner-occupant, and we'll see what happens with this property. Take care.